Imagine hearing that as a father. Oh my god. Ooh, okay, okay. Yes, yes, he is. Great theme, man. Yeah, I think I forgot to mention in my and knows that Mello is a part of this. To get the notebook and capture Kira.
Right. 私の命と引き換えでもいいんだ。左右だけは頼む。一人で判断すべき局面にぶつかったら、その時は必ず左右も父さんも死なない形を選択する。そう約束してくれ。
Okay. Okay. I don't think he cares, Misa. Yeah. Look at that, a caged bird. Misa, Misa. Yeah, you're in quite the situation. Ah, there it is, right? Oh, she heard that. Nice. Time to trim that afro. Imagine he just goes, get off. He's got to play the game a bit, of course, right? He's got no interest in Misa, but, you know, you have to... Oh, it's Aizawa. Looking sharp, Aizawa. Oh.
Mr. Yagami. これはハイジャックとは違い、少し寄り道をし、乗客を一人降ろすだけのものです。レーダーでしっかり追ってもらって構いません。しかし、変な邪魔が入るようであれば、容赦なく乗客を道連れに墜落させます。
Wow.
今日初の乗務員は前もって全て調べたか。怪しい者はいなかった。機長は15年以上のベテラン。
Yeah.
副機長も何の問題も。
They got to them. Look at this. Look at this. Ooh, ooh.
長官、L です。N を。俺がお前の娘を誘拐した主犯だ。
See, just like L.
俺はお前や娘の命などこれっぽっちも欲しくない。
There's that theme again.
とりあえず
Death Note.
ノートだけだ。取引もお前が納得し安心できるやり方を用意してやる。
Okay, okay. I believe him on that.
娘の命と殺人ノート、得体の知れぬものと交換。私はどっちを取るべきなのだ。
Oh man. Oh no, come on, please.
警察官として、人間として、親として。
That's a dilemma, right? Oh, look at that. I'll have to freeze frame that. Have a better look at it. Okay, this is turning into like... Look at this. Yeah, I was just gonna say this is turning into like James Bond baddie. He's excited by this.
当然、平成のことも読んでいたか。これでは動きを見ることも。
Sayu. Think he's trying to show it's bulletproof? Yeah. Come on, Chief Yagami. You got this.
まさか本当にノートが誰ともわからぬ者の手に落ちていいと思ってるんですか？
This guy is enjoying this. They have to test it out, right? On the spot before making the deal. You have to know it's the real deal. Yeah, like Yagami is on the ropes right now. About to lose it.
ミサを黙って僕に言われたことをしていろ。日本の裁きをいつもよりしっかりやってくれってことだ。 いいから言われたこと。八つ当たりだ。
Indeed, Ryuk. Huh.
こうなったらサイを殺すしかないのか。
She's traumatized. Rightfully so. Okay, there is a struggle, but he's thinking of it.
警察内部のものしか知らないこの事件。
There it is. He can't do it.
サイの死をキラのせいにできない。
Just took out one of their own goons, huh? Wow, they're really about to lose the... Oh, this is it. Yagami. Chief Yagami. Oh. Oh boy. Oh, he also knows that Mello might be about to get that.
結構難しいことを簡単に言いますね。わかりました。できるか。
Can it be that easy though? Whoa. What? A drone?
ミサイル。お。
あれはレーダーでは追えない方です。
Oh.
ミサイルにノート。発射されました。
This has taken quite the turn in just a few episodes. Ah, okay. Oh boy, you're getting used, my friend. Yeah, they'll get cleaned all right.
こうなるとやはりノートはミサイルの方か。
But it can't be tracked.
高速不能。完全に目標を見失いました。
At least Sayu's safe, and Chief Yagami. He's gonna think about that a lot, though. Look at this. Look at this. This is not the Light Yagami I remember. Yeah.
今頃はノートを手にしているはず。
He knows Mello's.
そうしたらまず何をするか。分かりきって。
Oh boy. There it is. God damn. And it's coming crashing down, huh? It's gonna take out the entire SPK? Oh. Okay. Whoa, that's a lot of them, but there's 2 left.
エル、あなたたちは何もできずにミスミスノー
How
トを
much is true, man? He was so helpless.
N、あなたが指揮を取っていればノートを渡さずに済んだと。
私には犯人の心当たりが全くないわけ
I mean, he knows it's Mello.
私がこの事件に絡んでいると考えているのは通称メロ。
通称メロ。
写真はありませんし本名は分かりません。分かっているのは4年前までイギリス・ウィンチェスターのワイミーズハウスという養護施設にいたという。
He's really giving that up, huh?
ワイミーズハウス。確か渡りが創設した。
Is he trying to bait? He's trying to bait Light, isn't he?
ゲームをしているんだと思います。どちらが早くラスボスのキ
The
ラー
last boss. I think he wants Light Yagami to go there, doesn't he? Whoa, 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 whoa. Shinigami realm? Long time no see.
アラモ・ジャスティン。
アラモニア・ジャスティンだ。
Aramonia Justin.
ノートをなくして大王のジジイのところに報告に行ったんだけど、ノートの特徴を言ったら、それならリュウクが自分が落としたノートだって言って持ってったって。
Oh, so is he gonna go try to get that
ど
back?
うすればいいんだ？
それだとリュウクから返してもら
Oh
わないと
man.
やっぱりそうか。行くしかないのか。下界に。
Ah, so they're about to introduce yet another Shinigami, huh?
そうか。
Oh. Right then. Okay, episode 28. You know, I quite like that ending. You know, taking us back to the Shinigami realm and introducing us to, or introducing these 2 new Shinigami. Now, I feel like I've seen the one that was sitting on the chair. I think it might be from the first opening, right? The guy, yeah, it is. I've seen him in the opening before. Now, this Armunio Justin, right, seems to be in some sort of high ranking, position, right? Clearly there's some kind of hierarchy going on here. This other Shinigami came to him, to ask him about next potential steps. And of course, this Shinigami is the one who lost his Death Note, and I finally get an explanation for Ryuk's extra copy, right? He essentially tricked the old man, the king, into thinking that it was indeed his copy, and that he dropped it. Turns out it was this Shinigami's copy, and now he wants that copy back, right? And because of that, it turns out that the Shinigami is going to the human world to go and retrieve his copy, or at least go find Ryuk and attempt to, get his copy back. So yeah, interesting new dynamic being introduced into this final phase of the story. Is this Shinigami going to play a large role? Can I see it being as big of a role as Rem? That was the other really big Shinigami that was introduced into the story, and she played a substantial role. Rem played a major role in the story. It's as substantial as it gets, right? I don't know if this new Shinigami is going to play that type of role, but it's clearly about to play some sort of role because it is coming to Earth, right? To go look for Ryuk and subsequently his copy of the Death Note. Now, that copy of the Death Note, at this moment in time, it just so happens that it's been lost, right? Light Yagami faced quite a heavy defeat in this one. It's rare. It's quite rare. And, it's the one thing he hates. It's one of the things he hates most, to not be in control, and he was put in that position for long chunks of this episode, and you see how frustrated he is to be in that position. And to hear him say, "I can't do anything," yeah, that's strange. It's rare. It's strange to hear that come out of his mouth. I'll come back to Light. I want to stick on this point first about this new Shinigami. So yeah, that copy of the Death Note just kind of flew off, right? It flew off, but clearly it fell in the right hands, right? The intended hands, because Mello did end up, killing a substantial portion of the SPK, right? Now, of course, he didn't kill Nier, and that's one of the things that's quite clear at this point. These two are not going to harm each other. They're competitive, right? And Mello has shown us that he's not afraid to kill, right? And use all kinds of methods to get one over. And the initial feeling I got here is that they're not trying to kill each other. And it feels like that's kind of like off limits. Mello is down to do some terrible things, right? He's able to go down a dark path to make things happen. Yet it feels like killing each other or targeting each other is kind of like off limits. It's like this rule that they both kind of understand, right? So he killed most of his team. So yeah, it's in their possession now. But again, the ownership dilemma, right? That's the question here. Essentially, whoever picked it up is the owner, right? The first one to pick up the copy. It's a beautiful scene, actually. Of course, it's quite sad as people are dying. Most of his SPK team is getting decimated. But the dice falling. It was a great scene. It was a great scene, and just like that, most of his team just got decimated. This new Shinigami is coming to Earth, right? So that's the copy, or that's meant to be his copy, right? The one Ryuk took, and Light Yagami found, and then there was that switcheroo, and it ended up becoming attached to Rem, but then Rem passed. Now no one else was attached to it. So actually, hold up. No. Let's back up here. That copy, technically the owner is still Light Yagami, isn't it? Because Higuchi had that copy, right? And then Higuchi died, and as Higuchi died, Light Yagami was holding the copy, right? So yeah, Light Yagami is still technically the owner of that copy. Though of course, they've explained in past mid-episode cards that, you can use it even though you don't have ownership of it. Though, of course, having ownership of it doesn't mean that, it's magically going to just come back to him, because at this moment in time, the physical copy itself is in someone else's possession. And so I'm guessing sooner or later, this Shinigami is going to end up tracking those people down, right? Because that's the copy he's after, right? That's his copy initially. So that could be an interesting dynamic, the Shinigami potentially going to that group, right? Much like, how Rem was, for a moment in time, at least for a few episodes, she was kind of attached to the task force, right? They all knew Rem, they saw her. Something similar could happen here, right? Now, the reason I was kind of excited about this new Shinigami, because, like I just stated, if, the search for his copy takes him to that group, it could present some interesting dynamics here, right? Some interesting new openings. Could he try to rival Ryuk, right? In an attempt to get back at Ryuk, perhaps, and help this group or help Mello, right? Could that be another angle here? Could he undo some of the things Light and Ryuk have set up? And by that I mean the rules, right? This is the copy that has the rules in it. Ryuk prepared it. I don't want to beat a dead horse. I really go into detail in one of my discussions. This is the copy Ryuk prepared. It had the English rules. He dropped it to Light. This is the copy Light wanted to, make sure it goes to Higuchi, and he wanted to make sure Rem is attached to this copy, right? And of course, this is the copy they made up the fake rules in, right? In that forest, he had Ryuk make up those 2 rules. Now, if they have this copy, they are also going to assume that these are the actual rules. So yeah, there is a possibility here that this new Shinigami could kind of go there and straight up just tell them, no, this is not a rule, this is not a thing, right? So that could present another interesting opening here for Mello, right? Let's put a pin in that. This Shinigami has to play some sort of role, right? Something. It can't just be for the sake of bringing the Shinigami in and have him kind of, him and Ryuk have a back and forth, right? Or unless it is, I don't know. But the feeling I'm getting here is that surely it is going to play some part. And if the Shinigami does get his hands back on his Death Note, there's every chance he might see the fake rules and straight up just, rubbish it and, deny those. He has no reason to, play along. Ryuk took his copy, right? So there's got to be some animosity there. But yeah, circling back to Light, this was an absolute defeat for Light. This is as helpless as I've seen him look. There's a lot of rust. And, I brought up this notion in my last discussion. He needs to step it up, man. He needs to get his shit together. He just faced quite an embarrassing defeat, actually. He was so helpless, right? And he hated being in that position. He's really going to have to, pull it together, man. He's really going to have to get into the zone. Because now a copy of the Death Note is out there. It's out of his hands. He doesn't know, or he has no control over that copy anymore. Mello bamboozled him and then some, didn't he? Right? His bold approach to this, his risky approach to this, high risk, high reward approach to this paid off, didn't it? Mello, that is. He thought of everything. He had countermeasures in place for everything. This is because he knows, Mello knows that that N has some substantial resources at his disposal, right? So he thought of all these countermeasures. And of course, even like Yagami had to turn to N, right? He hates asking for help, especially, this new threat or this new possible threat to him. But, at one point in time, he felt so helpless that he had no other option but to get in touch, because he knows he has to utilize, the resources at N's disposal, right? And those are substantial resources at his disposal, satellites and, surveillance footage, live feeds and all that, right? He's starting to feel a bit helpless, and he had to kind of, suck it up and get in contact, especially because it's his family that's kind of, tangled up in all of this. His father's in there trying to make a deal to get, his other family member out of there, his young sister. That being said, he's, I brought up this possibility in the discussion for the last episode. You know, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he could think of putting Sayu's name in there. Yeah, you know, he certainly thought of it. And yes, there is some hesitation there, right? But, you know, let's not, you know, give him too much credit here, because it's clear the main reason he couldn't do it is because he knows if he does that, it pinpoints Kara back to someone on the task force, right? Because only they know. And I think I brought this up in my discussion. That was like the one roadblock in potentially writing down his own sister's name, right? So, you know, I'm not going to give him too much credit here. Yes, you know, he doesn't want to write his sister's name down, you know, let's say that for sure, but he's more than open to do it, right? Just to make sure that the copy doesn't fall into someone else's hands. But, you know, there was that speed bump stopping him from doing this. I think he would have done it. There was some hesitation, but I think he would have done it. But, you know, the thing that stopped him is the fact that, yeah, doing this is no good. It pinpoints Kara as someone on the task force. But yeah, you know, you've got to say it's been a great first strike by Mello, right? This is you know, it's impressive. His bold approach paid off for him for sure. But you know, this new element of N against Mello, I like that aspect. I really do. It's like this cat. There's a, you know, like I said, there's that element of you know, Light against L, but now it's kind of like N against Mello, right? This cat and mouse chase, right? Who gets to the big boss first, right? Who catches the final boss, Kara? That was a great moment in the episode, I think. Or I thought. Now, in a really interesting moment, in Nier, N opens up about Mello. He tells fake L, and, you know, it's so interesting that he's kind of playing along and just calling him L, right? Even though he knows the real L is dead. But he's just continuing to call him fake L, right? But he mentions Mello, and he mentions the orphanage and from England, right? He specifies it. So, you know, my first impression was that he is trying to bait this fake L, right? He's trying to bait Light Yagami, because he's also kind of, you know, putting his own test into motion here, or into play here. I think he kind of wants Light Yagami to look into this, right? By kind of pointing him towards this direction. He wants to see how he'll react to this. And I feel like a lot of this is N kind of watching fake L, right? And he even tells him, you know, you can have the lead on this, right? You have full authority on this. I felt that he's trying to see how this fake L operates and functions, right? He's trying to get an understanding of this. And, you know, in this first collaboration of sorts, he's seen that he was quite helpless. He gave up the Death Note, though, you know, Nier or N was kind of fair about it. He said, you know, in this situation, you know, with this type of preparation, the Death Note would have been taken regardless, right? But yeah, you know, not a great first impression. A really interesting new angle here, you know, Nier or N mentioning the orphanage in England. Now, you know, I think he actually straight up even said, you know, I don't have a photograph, I don't know his real name, but it's this individual that goes by the name of Mello, right? So clearly a fake name. They established that, you know, up front. A fake candle, right? So, of course, in that sense, Nier is clearly a fake name as well. So yeah, of course, you know, once Light has this lead from N, again, it remains to be seen if he is trying to bait him or he is trying to, you know, send him in that direction. It remains to be seen, but, you know, Light is going to look into it, or or at least he's going to get the task force to, you know, look into it. And of course, you know, they are going to learn something about it, about the orphanage and the people that used to go there, or the children that used to be there or still are there. So yeah. But again, you know, he does have a photograph of Mello, but he told Light Yagami, or he told Fake L, no, I don't know his name, I don't have a photograph, but I do know he came from this orphanage. You know, one of the other major aspects of this episode was Chief Yagami, Soichiro Yagami, and the situation, the predicament he found himself in. It was certainly a rock and a hard place type situation, right? Yes, that's his daughter, but you see there's a lot of things going through his mind, right, that are certainly going to play in his mind from this point on, because, you know, ultimately, yes, he chose his daughter. That's the line essentially. Family. He to him that was a line. Family came first. But you could tell that it's going to have an effect on him from this point on. The fact that he did hand off this killer notebook, right, Book of the Dead, and he knows just how devastatingly effective this notebook is, right? This Book of the Dead, and now it's in the hands of, as far as he knows, lunatics, right? Evil men, essentially. So, he's not like Light Yagami, right? This is going to almost always linger in his mind from this point on, right? That he ultimately made that choice, and because of him, the Death Note is out there now. And it was essentially used almost immediately to kill off most of the SPK, right? But again, it's one of those situations, right? And I think he put it wonderfully in this, or I thought the dialogue really got that point across. Him looking at this as a human, right? As a parent, right? And as a police officer. All of those things are going to play in his mind, right? It's going to affect him quite a bit, I think, from this point on. And speaking of the rescued daughter, Sayu, she looked absolutely traumatized, right? Wow. I mean, like I said, rightfully so. Imagine, she's still quite young. Yeah, after the time skip, the shore has, all grown up. But, to go through that type of experience, that is just, that's insane, right? So, yeah, she looked to be traumatized. How is that going to play a part in the rest of the series? Is it going to play a part in the rest of the series? Or is Sayu kind of like out of the picture now? So yeah, let's see if Sayu plays any other role in the rest of the series. Now, I don't mean in the sense that she's going to become part of the task force or anything. I just mean her being around and her, having gone through that experience, if that is going to play a part, in how the story might progress for, like Yagami, for Chief Yagami, for Soichiro Yagami, right? Let's see. And, earlier in the episode, Chief Yagami had made up his mind on the matter, right? He was ready to just die. He was open to, dying as long as Light is able to somehow save Sayu, right? He was down to just give up his life, right? Family. That was the line here, essentially. Though even then, this was quite it was quite a difficult situation for Chief Yagami to be in, right? As again, the different roles as a father, as a policeman, as a human being, right? So I firmly believe that it is going to play a part for the rest of this series. The choice he ended up making here, because they've set him up as that type of character. He's not like Yagami. He can't just move on from this. But yeah, as helpless and frustrated and clueless like Yagami might have seemed, or not might have seemed, he did. All those things happened. It was quite a defeat for like Yagami, and it's a rare sight. He really needs to get it together, man. He really does. He's faced quite a substantial loss here, right? Against he was really up against it, on the ropes. So he's going to have to gather himself, get his shit together and get back into the zone, man. But, earlier in the episode, he actually did like how he handled that situation, how he addressed his father, right? Helped his father realize that, this might be fine for you. You're perhaps thinking selfishly here, but you have to think about how it's going to affect others, if you just, die. So, I really liked how he brought this level-headed approach to that conversation and helped calm down his father. And, again, to be fair, imagine being a father in that situation, right? And your daughter's been kidnapped, right? And you have no guarantee that, they'll give her back. So, yeah, I thought it was really mature how Light handled that situation and was able to kind of, calm his father down and, bring that level-headed approach to all of this. And help him realize, right, that, yes, right now you're in a really high tension situation. You're under a lot of pressure, but, come on, you have to really think about this. And, he implored him, that it's highly likely at some point they can't be in contact anymore. And he implored him to do anything necessary to get himself and Sayu out of there alive, right? And ultimately, yeah, he made that choice to give up the Death Note. So I certainly like that approach by Light in that specific case. Now, another thing in this episode is his treatment of Misa. It's not nice. It's really not nice to see how he treats her. And given the really high tension situation, the high pressure situation, he really, begins to snap at her. And you see when Ryuk kind of tells him, well, you're taking your anger out on her, right? Ryuk is attached to Misa essentially, right? Or to the copy Misa has at the moment. So I'm sure even Ryuk has some semblance of, of course, Ryuk's nothing like Rem, but you felt that in that situation, he is kind of calling Light out, or telling it like it is, that you are taking your anger out on her. So it's not nice to see. It's not nice to see that. Of course, Misa is not some angel herself, but it's still not nice to see how she's being treated here, right? And I felt that that imagery of her, and in the background you see the bird in the cage. I thought that adequately describes the situation. She is Light Yagami's pet. She is Kira's pet. As much as I've had thoughts of her potentially having a rebellious phase, I just can't see it happening. This is going to continue. She's going to be manipulated and used until she's not required anymore. But, she's certainly required at the moment. The Shinigami eyes are, a really useful thing to have, a substantial tool to have. And, this setup that, it is going to come into play. He brought her to LA because he intends to use that if the need comes up, right? And he feels like the need might come up in LA, so he brought her along. And even the mid-episode card, kind of brings attention back to the Shinigami eyes. So yeah, it looks like it is going to be used, the Shinigami eyes, at some point in the next few episodes, right? Or in this next phase of the story, it is going to come into play. A lot of times, I've noticed that a lot of times, the mid-episode card really gives you a bit of a hint in terms of the direction it might be heading into, right? By kind of refreshing it for the audience, by bringing in some of these rules once again associated with that particular segment or plot point. And in this case, the Shinigami eyes potentially being used at some point in the near future in these next few episodes. But yeah, I think that's about it for this episode. I got a first-hand look at Mello, his bold approach, his fearless approach, right? The risk-taking side of L is certainly quite present, and then some in Mello. So that bold approach paid off. He was able to get a copy of the Death Note. He was able to take out most of the SBK, though of course, he left N out of this, left Nier out of this. And then on the opposite end, you have Nier, who's clearly taking it all in. He hasn't struck just yet, right? Again, yin and yang, different approaches to all of this, right? I feel like even though it's a safer approach, more of a calculated approach by N and or Nier, that's a type of approach that is going to pay off in the long run. Mello's approach is getting results now, but this bombastic and risk taking approach of his, it could certainly blow up in his face, or it could present a lot of obstacles, right? It's a trade-off. I'm sure sooner or later I'm going to see N enter the field, and then I really get to see him, right? Right now he's just kind of laying back and taking it all in, right? But yeah, I'm sure he's going to step in at some point, and like they set up in the last episode, through that photograph left behind by Mello, he is susceptible to slip-ups, right? So, of course, there's results, immediate results because of this aggressive approach. But, I feel like sooner or later, Mello's approach is probably going to, expose something, right? Or expose him. I love that one transition of N speaking with the SBK before most of them got decimated. Speaking of how, their priority is to, catch Kira, right? And essentially get the Death Note, right? Those are the two things. Apprehend Kira and get the Death Note. And I loved how, he tosses the dart. And this time he had, phenomenal form, clearly, unlike before, it was kind of limp. He was missing the board. Now, they didn't show the board, but, the transition is so great here. As he, shoots off the dart, the transition goes to, Light Yagami, right? As you know, he just mentioned Kira, so the target is Kira, and it transitions to Light Yagami as he tosses the dart. I thought it was a beautiful transition. And again, the music continues to be fantastic. I'm loving these new tracks that have been introduced. Again, you know, Mello's theme and En's theme, and there's even this third track that's a new one. I'm really enjoying it quite a bit, the music. But yeah, you know, parts of it got a bit out there, right? They are getting out there a bit. You know, I kind of mentioned James Bond. It's getting in that territory, right? But yeah, you know, 3 episodes since L died, and you know, I've got to say, yes, I miss L, and you know, of course, no one can fill that hole. Right, I still don't think N or Mello are as compelling as L, but you know, they're certainly interesting and intriguing. That's for sure. But yeah, you know, there's signs there that there's something interesting going on here. But yeah, you know, post L, there, you know, in the span of a few episodes, there's been this aggressive expansion in terms of the narrative. You know, there's been quite a tonal shift. And yeah, it's set up a totally different potential endgame here, right? New conflict. So yeah, you know, so far, post L, I'm seeing some interesting elements. Right then, that's about it for this episode. If you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like. That really does help the channel get noticed more or grow. It takes a split second, so if you did enjoy it, just consider dropping that like. Consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you're interested in early access or full length, consider checking out the Patreon page. It's just an option for anyone who is interested in content beyond the scheduled content. And of course, the polls to replace an anime are through Patreon, and they're for patrons. The patrons essentially decide, though, you know, I do handpick the options. You know, essentially I'll pick like 4 or 5 things that I'm down to just check out. Right, and then it's up to the patrons to pick from those 3, 4, or 5 different options. So yeah, the replacement poll for Death Note is coming up soonish, and it's going to be a shorter anime because, you know, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is it's the really long-term anime at this point. So you know, I can't really take up another slot and bring in a really long anime. So you know, clearly a few specific long series are not going to be part of this poll. I'm looking at something like, you know, 24 to 27 episodes max. And also, if you're into social media and Twitter specifically, because that is the one I'm most active on, the link for that is also in the description and the pinned comment. Right then, so that's about it for this one. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for your time, and I hope to see you again for the next one. So until then, take it easy.